Hello. Hi. Hi there. My name is Clovis Chapman. I work at Groupon. We're based here in Ireland, in Dublin, where we have about 150 people, I think we're reaching now, working on computational marketing. And we're still growing and looking for another 30, I believe. I only have about 10 minutes, and what I thought I'd do is talk a bit about the history of Node.js at Groupon. So we actually today, all of our front-end infrastructure for all countries worldwide is powered by Node.js, and this is something that works extremely well and we're very happy with. And what I thought I'd do is just go over how we transitioned to Node.js from an old Ruby on Rails stack, and why we did it. So starting from the beginning, Groupon was an extremely simple site. Based in Chicago, you could go there, provide your email, and every day you would get a discount by email for a restaurant, a gym membership, or something like that. And it was a very simple site, simple architecture, a very simple implementation. And but it worked extremely well, and very quickly it grew massively. So we went in the scope of 3-4 years from 40,000 users to about 41 million active customers and over 200 million subscribers. And this was across over 40 countries. So it was a massive growth. Some of it was helped through acquisitions. So at some point, Groupon purchased CD Deals and Needish to target different markets in Europe and in South America. And this growth was fantastic from a business perspective. But from a technical perspective, things looked a bit more like this. So what started off as a sort of a small and pretty and tidy implementation sort of grew into this weird monstrosity that looked a bit fragile and looked like it was about to fall over at any time. Still worked, but it didn't look great. And this was actually hurting the business, basically. We couldn't quite innovate in the way that was required to keep up with the overall business growth. So it was important to challenge our existing frameworks, and to challenge our existing approach and basically come up with something new. So more specifically, when Groupon started, it was a very simple implementation. It was a three-tier architecture, your routing layer powered by Nginx, a SQL database, and in the middle we had this web application all written in Ruby on Rails. As Groupon grew by 2013, the engineers tried to introduce all the best practices for software-oriented architectures. So all the backend services, we introduced backend services all with their own data stores, and we also adopted a CDN, which would be handling all the caching of the static assets and stuff, so that basically we could respond to requests faster. But in the middle, we still had this big monolithic web application. And we had all the engineers, several hundred engineers all contributing code there, and we had to deploy everything together and test everything together. And it was really becoming the bottleneck of our infrastructure. Things were made worse by the fact that through our acquisitions, we also inherited different platforms, which were similar from an architectural perspective, but actually were written in a completely different stack. So it was all Java and PHP. And basically, every time we needed to implement a new feature, and we wanted to implement it, worldwide, we actually had to do it twice in different languages. So it was not manageable at all, and we really had to revisit this. So this is where Node.js comes in. Essentially, what we wanted to do is dismantle this middle tier. So we wanted to get rid of that big web application. And essentially decompose it in such a way that we could evolve all the features of the site independently. At the same time, we still wanted to retain some consistency and ensure that the customer experience was considered throughout. We had a common look and feel throughout, and we also had access to all the same data and the like. One important aspect is also the speed of the site. So it could take several seconds, especially on the old CD Deals platform, to actually return a response. So here we needed to accelerate that as much as possible. So why did we start looking at Node.js? I suppose for the same reason everybody else here is. So it's it's basically the asynchronous approach and the non-blocking I/O make it perfect for where we wanted to use it in the architecture. The fact that we could leverage our existing JavaScript libraries and the knowledge of our developers was also great. And fundamentally, it's extremely quick to get up and running. So especially thanks to things like NPM, we suddenly had access to this huge set of open source libraries. So really, in half the time that we would take previously to release a feature, we could now implement a new application. Apologies. So what does the ITR architecture look like today? Well, it looks something like this. So essentially, where previously we had one big monolithic application, now we've actually decomposed it into a collection of much smaller applications. And we have a specialized routing layer, which basically looks at the incoming requests and then directs these requests to the appropriate app. So if, for example, you're coming in and visiting groupon.com/browse, you're going to be pointed towards the browse app. And if you're visiting groupon.com/deal, you're going to be pushed towards the deal app. And each one of these applications can be developed independently, can be rolled out independently, can scale independently. And that allows us really to integrate new features and new subsections of the site very fast. And to make sure that everything is consistent, we have these backend services, so layout services, deal service, etc., that will provide the data on request. If you're curious about the specific stack, we use CoffeeScript. So CoffeeScript is something that people either love or hate. I mean, I think it's great, and it certainly makes your JavaScript a lot easier to read. We rely on very commonly used libraries, such as Express, to handle the web request management. Connect, which allows you to stack up different modules so that you can get them to process all in turn different requests. We use Mustache templating, which is a very simple, logic-less templating system. And then we have a whole bunch of homegrown libraries to handle deployment, to handle A/B testing, monitoring, etc. So actually, we do release some of these as open source, which I'll come back to in a sec. So the result is today, Groupon is actually composed of over 100 different node-based apps. The front-end infrastructure, and this has been great simply because in terms of velocity, the speed at which we can release new features, it becomes very easy to iterate and also optimize different subsections of the site independently. So because of that, we're now able to load pages 50% faster than before. So that's it. I mean, that was the lightning talk. We actually, so as I said, we release a lot of our stuff as open source. You can check out this page, actually, and you'll see a lot of the libraries there we've released for ITR. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to come and talk to me or any of the rest of the Groupon crowd. There are a few of us here. That's it. Thank you very much.